welcome back. You're watching Financial Planner. My name is Smriti Rao. I'm in conversation with Certified Financial Planner Karthik Javeri, and we're talking about what are the things that you should be looking out for before you make your big purchase, which is your dream home. Karthik, before we went into the break, we were talking about, a couple of pointers to keep in mind, and you mentioned EMIs, of course, and saying that when you finally go in for your home loan, 1/3 of your total net income is what is going to be your EMI, or at least approved to be the EMI. What should you bear in mind when it comes to EMIs?
Well, typically it won't be out of net income, it will be in the gross income. That's what a home finance company will look at, right? But while you've done that, you need to have some sort of a backup. What if you lose a job, just like you mentioned?
Right.
So, this is the time where we build a contingency fund. When we do a financial plan, we incorporate EMIs as a part of it. Now, if you're just thinking about paying your EMIs, a very simple thing to do is whatever is your EMI, multiply that by about 6 months. Do you have that much as a reserve? Maybe that fund could be sitting in a fixed deposit or something like that,
so
which you don't touch, so that if for any reason you cannot pay, then you have this backup money. Because if you don't pay, the consequences are absolutely serious.
That's true, yes. And you don't want to lose your home as a result
absolutely,
of that.
and you will literally lose your home because 3 months you don't pay, the bank classified as a, makes a classification that your asset is an NPA. It, slowly and steadily and under a process, but it moves to an auction. There is an act called SARFAESI, which has empowered all lenders to such an extent that you cannot touch them, you cannot appeal to the court, you can't do anything. They will just simply seize your property, you will be out, and they will sell your property in an auction if you default on a loan. So this is one loan where you never ever under any circumstances want to even miss a single EMI. You just don't want to default on this one.
That's a great point that you make. So 6 months is what you must have in your reserves. So when someone, let's say someone in their late 20s, early 30s, so you already have a lot to think about, because you have to make sure that your family is protected, that you basically make sure that if anything happens to you, your family is taken care of, and now you have this home, and now you're saying have 6 months of EMIs
as a reserve.
So that in case something happens, you can pay for it.
In addition to the other contingency funds that you need. See, when we're doing a financial plan, you should also not pay so much of EMI in terms of a quantum that you're not able to save for your retirement. You don't have any corpus to make provisions for a child's education. You don't have any money to have a holiday. I mean, you can't really live that way, you see.
Right.
You can't have all your money being allocated there. So you need to have some sort of backup money for other needs also. Your home expenses, we typically say 3 to 6 months, the home expenses is also contingency.
True.
So if you're spending your home expenses plus your EMI, multiply that by 6, and that should be your reserve fund sitting in a fixed deposit somewhere absolutely safe and secure.
For someone listening to all of this, do you fear that maybe you'll scare them off and say, man, this seems like a lot of money to put away and a lot of money to have as backup? Is it a scary thing?
No, it's not really scary. I mean, it's just so much of information put together.
Right.
But most of the times, a lot of people don't think about this, you see. And it's not really with the first time buyers, but even the second time and the third time buyers, people who have the second flat, third flat, there's a big factor of greed playing in all of that. And therefore they think that real estate is one of the best asset classes, which I don't deny. It is one of the best asset classes, but the holding period is much, much longer. You may think that I'm buying something now and in 4 years time I'll be able to walk out, or even before I make an agreement I'll walk out. You might be surprised, your holding period will be 10 years.
Right.
So real estate is a big thing. Even when somebody has to buy your property, which you want to sell at a profit, you've got to, wait for the whole market to move to such an extent that somebody will pay you your price.
That's true. And speaking about properties and buying properties, we've been seeing a lot of ads, and you see them all over the place on television sometimes, maybe on magazines and newspapers selling properties. And I just want to go through a couple of ads that we've seen.
That's right.
Just to reinforce the point that whatever property that you're buying, just beware of what you're getting into. And we see a lot of ads, they say something like the project is located a kilometer or away from the proposed metro station or airport. For someone who sees that in an ad, should they be immediately tempted? What would you tell them? How do you go and check out the property? How should the buyer be aware?
Bet on the infrastructure that is just about available. This is India, this is not Hong Kong. It's not going to happen.
So you never know when it's going to happen.
I mean, we're talking, there are so many projects. Proposed airport at Navi Mumbai, and, everybody is selling like hotcakes there, and everybody thinks that, this is going to be the place to be.
Right.
But, for the next 20 years, you may not see an airport there. So, bet on what is available right now. Don't go by offers. Even if the builder is raising his price every 200-300 rupees every few flats that he sells, that doesn't mean that your money is appreciated, because if you go out to sell your flat, you are then competing against the builder's stock, which is far more and much more variety.
Right.
So you are not going to be able to realize that price in a hurry. If you have a 10-15 year plan, only then think about these new areas. Otherwise, old is gold, and the old maxim always works in real estate. The best property is the prime property. and which has remained a prime property. You know, best property is the one that has best infrastructure. However congested it might be, but it will
Right.
still fetch you a price, and there will be liquidity, which is the most important factor.
Okay, and the other thing that I want to point out, and these were a couple of pointers that came out in Outlook magazine, so a big thank you to them. I want to talk about this. What if ads say something like, last few flats left, book now? Should you be looking at that? Is that something that should scare you?
Well, you know, if it's your first home, then you have to just buy it anyways. But this is more for
Right.
like a second, third home buyer. Don't be greedy. Don't get into it. Otherwise, this is a sure way of getting into a debt trap. Because especially if you're funding properties through loans, you know, don't get into it. The builder anyways has a plan to start to sell his first property at a price of X, and by the time he sells the last flat in that apartment, he wants to sell it at 2X or 3X. So, which is why he will always have everything sold. You know.
And the third thing, book now. Prices are expected to go up soon. Again, if it's part of your plan, what would you say?
If it's a part of the plan, see, if you have to buy, if it's your first home, then a lot of these rules don't apply. If you have to buy a house, you need a shelter, you need a shelter. There's no question about it.
Right.
But for second, third homes, then just avoid it, look at it, evaluate it in every way. It's your second home or third home. You're not going to live there. So you get the best deal for your money. Don't have to jump into something like this. You know, maybe you have so many choices. You can have beachfront, you can have seafront, you can have mountain, you can have valley, you can have whatever you want really.
Right.
You know, but you can really choose and be very choosy, be very picky. Don't just, you know, jump in for something which is seemingly lucrative. It might not be at the end of it.
Okay, we have a couple of more pointers and a couple of other things that advertisers say, but they don't necessarily mean. We'll talk about that when we